Good morning. Friday, 1st of November 2024 is World Vegan Day. And today, this morning, I'd like to say some words about veganism. So, unfortunately, in Malaysia this year, World Vegan Day is overshadowed by tomorrow's Deepavali celebrations. So let me start by unpacking what I mean by veganism, or what people mean by veganism. Vegans are basically vegetarians that don't take dairy. Okay, even vegetarians, there are many types of vegetarians. Some eat fish, some don't. Some eat eggs, like many of the Buddhist vegetarians take eggs. I once asked a Buddhist monk why are eggs allowed in Buddhist vegetarianism. So the monk told me that the eggs that you buy are all sterile. They haven't been fertilized by a male cock. Okay, there's no pun intended there. So they are not viable. They will never hatch into a chick, so they're not considered life. And therefore, eating the eggs, you're not killing life. That was his rationale. And I take it at face value because he's a monk. Now, being vegan means that you don't take dairy, you don't take milk, you don't take cheese, you don't take lassi, tairu, muru, paneer, kefir, and whatever else. Now, let me talk about dairy. And most of the information I'm going to speak now about dairy comes from Dr. Neil Barnard, founder of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He's written a number of books about the dangers of cheese and dairy. So you can look it up if you want to know the facts in more detail. So the thing is, milk is drunk by the infants of any particular species. In the human species, milk is drunk when a baby is born until about the age of 2.5 or 4 years old. After that, they stop drinking mother's milk. And the same goes with other species. So horse milk is for baby horses, for foals. Cow's milk is for calves, baby cows. Camel milk was for baby camels, whatever they're called. And goat milk is for baby goats, kids. Okay? So I want to ask you the question, don't you find it strange that the human species is the only species that regularly drinks the memory secretions of another species? Do you see horses drinking cow's milk? Do you see dogs drinking cat's milk? Do you see camels drinking goat's milk? No, right? So don't you find it a trifle odd in the least that humans are the only species that drink the milk of another species? That's one point. Another point. Once you've weaned off mother's milk, you have no business drinking milk. Human milk, let alone the milk of another species. Why do I say that? Well, like I said earlier, milk is meant for the infant of that particular species. Why? Because the infant is not matured, the organs are not fully developed, they can't produce certain things like hormones and immunoglobulins and vitamins and other things. So the mother makes it for the baby and gives it to the baby through the milk. Now, I mentioned hormones earlier. So the mother produces hormones for the baby because the baby's endocrine system is not matured enough to produce the hormones on its own. Now, when you drink cow's milk, you're also consuming cow's hormone. But worse than that, you're drinking two other things in addition to the indigenous bovine hormone. You see, cows naturally produce 2 liters of milk a day. But for a farmer who practices, for a dairy farmer who practices animal husbandry, you want to maximize profits, and 2 liters a day is not viable. So what dairy farmers do is they inject cows with exogenous synthetic bovine hormone so that they produce as much as 20 liters a day. Now, two problems here. One problem is the udders of the cows get very big, get engorged, overfilled, like 10 times the normal size. So the udders are very sensitive and sore, and it's a form of torture to the animals. That's one point. The other point is when you drink the milk, you are not only drinking the hormones that the mother cow made for the baby cow, but you're also consuming this synthetic bovine hormone that was injected into the cow. Now, the third issue with dairy is antibiotics, okay? Now, when you rear cows in confined space, it's very easy for them to get infections from each other and get sick. So what dairy farmers do to make life easy is that they give the cows antibiotics, whether the cows are sick or not, just as a preventive measure from preventing from getting diseases. Okay? So the residue of these antibiotics go into the milk and we consume it. Of course, it's very low dose, possibly in the order of parts per million. But what happens to these antibiotics in this body is that it's at just such a low dose that it doesn't kill whatever bacteria or germs in our body. Instead, it sort of inoculates them or vaccinates them against that particular antibiotic. And that's how you get things like MRSA, antibiotic resistant Streptococcus aureus or other bacteria which are resistant to antibiotics. So those are the main issues with drinking milk. You're getting these cow hormones. Now, what are the consequences? In women, especially young women, one of the immediate consequences is that you get irregular periods, heavy periods, no periods, painful periods, cramps, all sort of things, because what happens is your body already calculates the amount of hormones it needs on a cyclical basis. And then by drinking milk, you're taking in these bovine hormones, which really interrupts and disrupts your natural cycle and causes havoc to your body. Over the long term, milk causes lupus syndrome. Okay, lupus is a disease that affects only women, not men. And you can get more details in Dr. Brooke Gardner's book. She cured herself of lupus by stopping dairy and eating a plant-based diet. So I think she's written 2 books, Goodbye Lupus and something else. But anyway, she's like one of the world's leading experts on lupus, and she tells you her own story based on science and the research she did to cure herself of lupus. Now, in men, over the long term, these hormones affect our endocrine system and particularly our prostate gland, and it enlarges it. So you'll get a condition in men called benign prostatic hyperplasia. Benign means it's not cancerous. Prostatic means it's of the prostate gland. And hyperplasia is simply a big word for inflammation. It's a type of chronic inflammation. Okay, so where the cells are enlarged rather than many cells are formed to form the enlargement, the inflammation. So if I've met a girl, this laundry lady, because I asked her, because when I went the previous time, she wasn't there. So when I saw her the second time, I asked her if she was on holiday, and she said no, she took medical leave because she had very painful periods. And I told her, you can avoid the painful periods by stop drinking milk. And she said, yes, lah, Encik Azlan, if I take skim milk, the pain is less. And I told her, if you avoid completely, the pain would go. Drink a substitute like soya milk, for example. However, she doesn't like the taste of soya milk, so she could endure lesser pain by drinking skim milk. So, people leave them up to the individual choices, what they want to do. If they can live with the pain, they can, take skim milk. But if they are intolerant of pain and don't want to experience these painful periods, they can just skip milk altogether. Now, I also know vegetarians who are unhealthy. Okay, being a vegetarian or being vegan in itself doesn't mean you're eating healthily. For example, you can drink alcohol, uh, anything from beer to brandy, cognac, whiskey, and still be vegan. You can even smoke, tobacco and be vegan, or ganja or katum and still be vegan. Or you can even consume cocaine, which is made from coca leaves, and still be vegan. So it's not necessarily healthy. You can eat French fries fried in vegetable oil, palm oil, and still be vegan, not healthy. You can also drink Coca-Cola, which is, originally it had cocaine, but not anymore, which is unhealthy because it's loaded with sugar. Okay, so the reason why I'm vegan, and I've been vegan for just over 6 years now, since 18th October 2028, is for health reasons. Now, many people become vegan for many reasons, animal right reasons, for the environment, blah, blah, blah. I subscribe to almost all of these reasons, but, the priority for me is my health. So I follow a particular type of vegan diet called a whole food, plant and fungi based diet. Now, this was originally called whole food plant-based diet, but in plants they included mushrooms. Now, these people who originally thought up the word were not taxonomists or botanists, or mycologists, so they weren't aware, not their fault for their ignorance, that mushrooms are not plants. They belong to a different kingdom of their own called fungi. So fungi are mushrooms and toadstools, okay? Now, so I eat plants and fungi 99% of the time. There is 1% of the time where I do eat animal products from the animal kingdom. There's several reasons for this. One is there's some things which I can only get from the animal kingdom, or if I can get it from a non-animal source, it'll be very expensive. A case in point is vitamin D. Now, I have a particular problem with my metabolism. My body doesn't make enough vitamin D of its own. Nobody seems to know why. Doctors don't care to know why. They just give me the treatment, which is every 2 weeks I take a long-acting vitamin D supplement. So when I looked up the literature, this particular supplement, or most cheap vitamin D supplements, are derived from lanolin, which is a secretion on sheepskin. Now, before the vegans go up in shock and horror, let me tell you that the sheep are not sacrificed in obtaining the lanolin. The lanolin is derived from sheepskin when the sheep are sheared, and sheep have to be sheared once a year before in late spring, before the summer. Otherwise, their heavy coat of wool would overheat them and they get too hot and they could die of heat stroke or dehydration. So anyway, The vegan form is from wild harvested lichen. So if you can imagine, lichen are quite hard to find. And then since you can't grow it, you have to wild harvest it. So, it's like, I can't remember, but, like at least 4 times more expensive. Okay. And the other reason is you need a safety valve. Okay, if you try to be 100% vegan all the time, and if it stresses you out, you start climbing up the walls, then it's counterproductive. I'm being vegan for my health, which includes my mental hygiene, my mental health. So rather than go crazy, once in a while, when I cannot tahan anymore, I will have something which is not from the plant or fungi kingdoms, particularly if I go out. So if I go out or go to a function or party or kanduri or whatever, I don't be an asshole and say, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. Can you prepare something special for me? You're just being a pain in the butt to your host. So that's the occasions where I do go off diet, off plan. As Dr. Neil Barnett says, this is Dr. Neil Barnett, founder of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He says it's okay to go off diet 1% of the time, so long as it helps you be on plan 99% of the time. And that's very good sense. Now, Dr. Neil Barnett was also, although he's more known as a nutritionist, in his early career, he was trained as a psychiatric intern. So he does know a thing or two about mind science. Now, the other people I follow was the late John McDougall. He's just passed away. He's written many books. He's most famous for The Starch Solution. He passed away about a month or two ago, actually. And he was in contact with Atkins, the Atkins of the Atkins diet, the widow, and got the medical records and found out that he died of heart failure. And primarily because on the Atkins diet, it's a high protein diet. The Atkins diet is more than 70% protein. And most of the rest are fats, and I think 5% or less carbohydrates. Okay, so that's not a particularly healthy diet. Similarly with the keto diet, which is 70% or more lipids. Okay, so what do you call it? It causes health issues in the long term. In the short term, if you look at studies done of less than 2 weeks duration, your blood sugar looks very nice and all that. Of course, it looks nice because you're not consuming any glucose or carbohydrates that break down into glucose. But having such a mega dose of lipids do cause problems in the long run. Okay. What else? So my particular type of veganism is a whole food, plant-based diet, but in that word plants, I include fungi. And it's, I avoid ultra-processed foods, okay? So ultra-processed foods was a concept that was classified by Professor... I can't remember his first name, Carlos. He's a Brazilian professor at University of Sao Paulo. So he invented this NOVA ultra-processed food classification system. He's got category 1, 2, 3, 4. Category 1 meaning minimally processed, category 4 the most processed. And this NOVA ultra-processed food classification system has been widely adopted primarily by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. And most nutritionists worth their salt will know about it. Okay, so I avoid SOFAs. SOFAs is an acronym that I created for sugar, oils, flours, and alcohol. Now, sugar, with that white powder we call table sugar, or even brown sugar, is, to me, it's poison, primarily because it's been refined, extracted, and purified to become this white powder. In the same way that cocaine is poison. Now, when I was in Peru and climbed Machu Picchu, they gave me these leaves to chew, ostensibly to avoid altitude sickness. So as I was chewing it, I asked them, what leaves are these? And they said they're coca leaves. And I went, shock, horror. You're giving me cocaine? They laughed at me in the face. And I asked, why are you laughing? He said, we've been chewing coca leaves for thousands of years. It's not an issue. And I said, what do you mean it's not an issue? They make cocaine from coca leaves, don't they? And they said, it takes 400 kilos of coca leaves to make 1 kilo of cocaine. And later in the city called Cusco, which has the airport nearest to Mount Machu Picchu, and also in the capital Lima, when I went to the supermarkets, I found that they were selling coca leaves in packets just in the section where they were selling tea and coffee, very openly, perfectly legal, perfectly fine, okay? So like Paracelsus says, Paracelsus is a Swiss 15th century physician. He said that everything is poison. It's a matter of dose. So if you take cocaine in the form of coca leaves, chewing it, it has beneficial effects. It has a therapeutic value. In fact, Paracelsus, he's saying everything is poison. It's a matter of dose. He introduced the concept of the therapeutic window. So if you take too little of something, there's no beneficial effects. You take the right amount, you hit the sweet spot. The beneficial effects outweigh the negative effects. And then if you take too much, then the negative or side effects are more than the beneficial effects. So it becomes counterproductive. So that's a very useful concept to understand. So coming back to sugar, until about 150 years ago, as any dentist will be able to tell you, that people didn't suffer dental caries very much. About 150 years ago, people learned how to refine sugar cane and beetroot and beat the sugar beet to produce sugar, white table sugar. And the advent of that coincided with rampant dental caries, primarily among the rich in the UK. Why the rich? Because sugar was expensive in those days. The poor people couldn't afford sugar, so the rich got dental caries. So that's a proven fact, and you can ask any dentist worth their salt to be able to tell you about that. Now, the second thing is oils. Now, oils are also refined and extracted. I've made a video about palm oil and the dangers of palm oil and the issues with palm oil. So I put the link in the video description. You can look it up. Now, you have to understand what intrinsic lipids are and what extracted oils are. So before that, let me just backtrack and explain what lipids are. Lipids are the collective term for oils and fats. Oils are lipids which are liquid at room temperature, and fats are lipids which are solids at room temperature. It's very simple, okay? Many people use the word oils and fats interchangeably, but just be careful. And both oils and fats are made of fatty acids, and fatty acids can be saturated, unsaturated, polysaturated, polyunsaturated, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, tropical oils, primarily palm oil and coconut oil, are very high in saturated fatty acids, so they are problematic. In any case, even olive oil is bad for you because the oil has been extracted and concentrated, and you get, it's devoid of everything else except the oil. Any oil is like that. So all oils are bad. Some are less bad than others. I'm quoting Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. Okay. Now, Dr. Esselstyn is a leading cardiologist in America. He's based at the Cleveland Clinic, and in his younger days, he was an Olympic gold medalist. He used to row for the United States. So in his younger days, he was an athlete. And he also advocates a whole food, plant-based diet. And he's reversed in his patients cardiovascular disease by just putting them on a plant-based diet, avoiding anything from the animal kingdom. While we're on the subject of oils and lipids, I think I'd like to have a quick mention of cholesterol. Now, cholesterol is a type of fat or type of lipid in the body. And the thing is, the body makes all the cholesterol it needs from the component fatty acids it gets from the diet. Okay, so the body every day calculates how much cholesterol it needs for the day and makes it. So when you take cholesterol in your diet, what the nutrition called dietary cholesterol, and you get dietary cholesterol from eating animal products, you will overdose on cholesterol. Okay, it's as simple as that. And cholesterol is needed. In fact, 90% of your brain minus the water is cholesterol, and cholesterol in everyone's adipose tissue, which is the fat under the skin, captures, when UVB light from the sun hits it, it produces vitamin D, except in my case, that mechanism is faulty and doesn't work. So I have to take long-acting, slow-release vitamin D supplements. Instead, I mentioned this earlier. Okay. However, when you have an overdose of cholesterol, but particularly LDL, low-density lipoproteins, depending whether you want to pronounce it the American way or the UK way, it becomes problematic. And not just the absolute amount of your low-density lipoproteins, it's your total cholesterol. If it's above a certain figure, then it's also problematic. And also the ratio of your LDL to your HDL. Okay, so that's the thing with cholesterol. Cholesterol are lipoproteins. Lipoproteins are molecules which are lipids, lipo, and proteins. So they're a bit of half and half. Okay, so all oils are poison. All oils are bad. Some are less bad than others. There's no such thing as a healthy oil. They're all bad. The notion of a healthy oil is a myth. Now, instead of eating or consuming oils, eat the stuff from which the oil is derived. So instead of eating olive oils, eat olives. Instead of taking soya oil, eat soybeans. Instead of taking corn oils, eat jagung, corn. Okay. Now, let me tell you something very interesting about coconut oil. Did you know that to make 1 kilo of coconut oil, you need 30 coconuts? So the lipids in 30 coconuts are concentrated to become 1 kilo of coconut oil, minus the water, minus the antioxidants, minus the vitamins, minus everything. Okay, so it's concentrated. Now, a lot of people have the wrong notion that, I can't eat curry because it's got santan in it, and the santan has got cholesterol. That's nonsense, okay? Cholesterol is only found in the animal kingdom. Nothing in the plant kingdom, makes cholesterol. Your body will take the fatty acids in the coconut that you eat and turn it into cholesterol on its own. So if you take coconut oil, then you overdose on these fatty acids, and your body, if it can't get rid of it, it will store it as fat, and you get obese. And if you don't exercise or fast to burn up these stored energy in your fat, then it starts becoming ectopic fat. Ectopic fat is misplaced fat. That means your fat storage area, basically your adipose tissue, which is the fat under your skin, the store is already full, saturated. Then the fat can't be stored there anymore, so it goes in your bloodstream and goes around your body, trying to find somewhere to call home. And usually it'll get stuck somewhere. And the first port of call normally is in muscle tissue, and you'll get stuck in the insulin receptor sites, and it causes a condition called insulin resistance. Okay, I won't get into this because that's another lecture in itself. So flours are processed, okay, and they're made from grain. So eat the whole grain. So instead of taking barley flour, barley powder, eat the barley grains. Instead of taking wheat flour, even brown whole wheat flour or atta flour, eat wheat. Now, it's very difficult to find bubur gandum nowadays, okay? But if people can find whole grain wheat and make bubur gandum, let me know. I miss it from my childhood. It's actually quite nice, okay? So eat the original source, the whole food from which the oil is derived. Then you will get the what do you call it? The food in its entirety, including all the antioxidant, vitamins, enzymes, whatever. So, wait, I digress. I jumped the gun. So back to coconut oil. So how I consume santan, for example, is I get a kelapa parut. You don't need the whole coconut, just get half a coconut worth of kelapa parut. Put it in a blender with 400 ml of cold water, put lots of ice, and then blend it for 7 to 8 minutes. Now, I tell you, 7 to 8 minutes is a very long time. Your blender will get hot if you do not put ice. So make sure you put ice. And what will happen is all the fiber, dietary fiber, all the hampas will get dissolved and you get very thick santan at the end of the day. Okay, you can thank me later. It's so beautiful. Now, how people normally make santan is they will take the kelapa parut, half a kelapa parut, for example. They add hot water to it. Now, hot water will destroy the antioxidants, vitamins, and enzymes because they begin to degrade above 57 degrees Celsius. Then they squeeze it out and they throw away the dietary fiber. And in the dietary fiber, locked in the three-dimensional matrix of the dietary fiber are phytochemicals. Phytochemicals is just a big word for plant chemicals. This includes vitamins and enzymes and antioxidants and stuff like that. Micronutrients, basically. Micronutrients are just words for nutrients they need in microscopic quantities, small quantities. So you throw all the good stuff away, and what you're left with is what do you call it, an emulsion of water and the lipids, okay, and the oil. And that's santan, made the traditional way. Whereas in my way, you also get all the goodness from the dietary fiber, which doesn't look like fiber anymore because it's been, pulverized by your blender. And because you put ice, it doesn't reach above 57 Celsius. So the antioxidant, vitamins, and enzymes are still viable. Okay, and you get the dietary fiber. Now, dietary fiber you pass out in your poop. However, so it's like not food for humans because it's basically cellulose, which is, indigestible for humans. However, it's food for your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome is a big kettle of fish, 35,000 species of yeast, molds, bacteria, viruses, and God knows what else. But generally, you can think of them as being in either of one of two categories. One is the dietary fiber-eating gut microbiome. The other one is the flesh-eating ones. So if you eat animal flesh, the flesh-eating ones will digest it and produce metabolites, and among which is something nasty called TMA, trimethyl aminase, which will cross the gut-blood barrier, goes to your liver oxidizes it, and it becomes an even nastier stuff called TMAO, which causes oxidative stress, oxidative damage, and it's one of the 8 pathophysiologies that cause non-communicable diseases. You can look it up in Professor Robert Lustig's book, Metabolical. He outlines and explains one chapter, 8 chapters, each chapter devoted to one pathophysiology. Now, so you need dietary fiber for your gut microbiome that eats dietary fiber, which produces good stuff for you. It produces 90% of your neurotransmitters, 70% of your immunoglobulins, basically 70% of your immunity is made by your gut. okay? And your mental health, your brain chemistry is, dependent on neurotransmitters, and your gut microbiome makes it for you. And for me, and most other vegans, I have particular gut microbiome that makes vitamin B12 for me. There's nothing in the animal kingdom that makes vitamin B12. It's only the soil bacteria. In fact, the particular gut microbiome that makes vitamin D12 is actually soil bacteria. And when you think about soil bacteria, makes compost. It decomposes vegetative matter, which is basically cellulose, into compost, which is the good stuff, fertilizer. So the same bacteria in your tummy decomposes cellulose, which is the raw material of vegetative matter, cellulose and stuff, and makes good stuff for you. So we have what we call a biotic association with this particular gut bacteria and all the other gut bacteria in your body. Now, the problem with the flesh-eating ones is that they produce TMAO, and it's nasty stuff. So if you go on a vegan diet, you don't feed the flesh-eating ones, then they starve and they die out, and then you solve that problem. If you keep eating dietary fiber, your dietary fiber eating gut microbiome will multiply and proliferate, and they produce all the good stuff for you. So it makes, common sense for me. However, if you want to go vegan after listening to this lecture, I advise that you transition to veganism. Transition to a whole food-based diet takes a month. There's a whole methodology to do this. Why a month? Because you need to build up gradually your dietary fiber eating microbiome. Because if you start going overnight, like I did 8 years ago, on the 18th of October 2018, not knowing any better, and I don't have enough dietary fiber eating gut microbiome to digest the huge amounts of dietary fiber I suddenly started eating, then once they don't get digested, what happens instead? They start fermenting. And the two metabolites of fermentation are one, carbon dioxide, which produces gas, carbon dioxide gas. So you get a lot of flatus, you get a lot of burping, you get, distended tummy, and you get hiccups and all that kind of thing. And I tell you, the gas, you'll get very stinky farts because of the fermentation. And the other byproduct of fermentation is alcohol. Alcohol is a basic byproduct of any fermentation process, and it's a very low dose alcohol, so you won't get drunk, but it will cross your gut blood barrier and eventually ends up in your brain, causing brain fog. Okay, so that's another reason why you should avoid eating or jumping straight into the deep end into a vegan diet. You need to transition. So it takes a month. In the first week, only breakfast is compliant. Second week, breakfast and lunch. And then third week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is compliant, so that you slowly build up your dietary fiber eating microbiome. And in that time, you don't eat meat, you slowly don't eat meat, and your flesh eating gut microbiome, you eventually starve and die. You don't have to worry about them anymore. Okay, and then in the fourth week, you can start doing things like intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day and whatever. Okay, I'm also on 1 meal a day. It's called an OMAD diet, OMAD, 1 meal a day. Okay, but don't jump straight into the deep end and do OMAD, okay, I've heard this lecture by AZLAN and I want to go vegan or whole food plant-based, and tomorrow I start doing it. That's the wrong way. You have to transition, okay? A lot of people advocate jumping in the deep end, and then when there are issues, they say, you just persevere, push through, use some discipline and determination and go through. That's the wrong way. I'm a guy who prefers the path of least resistance. Make it easy and effortless, and you get results. If you try so hard, at the end of the day, you give up. Just like Dr. Neil Barnard says, if you try 100% to get it right, and then it's so difficult, you give up and you say veganism is not for me. There's a whole bunch of jokers who prepare compliant food and send it to your home. 3 meals a day, they do one delivery. So, you prepare your own breakfast, but they send you lunch and dinner. And they package it with a blood test. So they do a blood test before and after. So you can buy 1 week or 2 week meals, and then you're supposed to eat their meals and only their meals, except for breakfast and what do you call it? Because they provide lunch and dinner, and they want you to jump in the deep end. And then a lot of people I've recommended tried it, and they get the side effects, and then they give up. They say, veganism is not for me, and then they badmouth and tell people. So these people are irresponsible. But you can understand why they do it, because it's just more convenient for them to do it that way. And they also want your blood test results to prove, they do some meta-analysis of all the people who go on their plan that a vegan diet is good for you. Okay, but it's more like torture at the beginning if you're not a vegan or not born vegetarian to do this. So please transition. Please, please, please don't listen to these people who want you to go and jump in the deep end. They mean well because they're very enthusiastic. They're seeing results, but they are advising you the wrong thing. To me, they are inflicting their idiocy on the rest of us and bring whole food plant-based into a bad name because people get the side effects and cannot tahan. I mean, if you've had brain fog, you know how effed up your brain will be and you can't think, you tend to be like, makes you stupid, turn you into a zombie. And also the fat thing is very antisocial because it stinks to high heaven. Okay, alcohol I don't take anyway, except in possibly very small amounts, residue. All vinegars may have trace amounts of alcohol because all vinegars are made through a double fermentation process. In the first fermentation, the sugar turns into alcohol. In the second fermentation, the alcohol turns into acetic acid, which is the basic stuff which vinegars are made of. Now, talking about vinegars, the world's experts in making vinegars are actually the Koreans, okay? Now, the Mazzale only have, distilled vinegar. Italians have balsamic vinegar and apple cider vinegar. But the Koreans, they make vinegar out of like almost everything, my favorite is peach vinegar, but they also make vinegar out of pomegranate, out of strawberries and grapefruit, blueberries, and what they call Korean black raspberries. The Korean black raspberries are actually blackberries, but the Koreans, for some reason, don't call them blackberries. They call them Korean black raspberries. Okay. The ones made of pineapple and a few others, I don't like because they taste more like chemicals than anything else. The Malays make vinegar from nipa. I've tasted it. Tastes foul. Let's put it mildly. You can basically make vinegar from anything that you can make alcohol out of, okay? You just ferment it a second time around and then it turns to vinegar. In fact, I've known people who make vinegar from honey as well. Okay, so that's my diet. And the leeway, don't be so hard on yourself being vegan 100% of the time. 99% of the time is fine. We just have that 1% of the time to lepas gian or let off steam or, not be antisocial or whatever. Okay? And I can tell you, being a diabetic, that if I were to take one meal, say if I take a meal of roast lamb, that one meal would screw up my blood sugar for the next 2 weeks, okay? The cause of diabetes is not sugar, like what most people think is actually fat, because the fat prevents the sugar from getting into the cells of every organ and muscle tissue in your body, so it remains in the blood. Now, high blood sugar is not diabetes. The problem is the sugar is there because it can't go where it's supposed to go. That is the problem, okay? The sugar in the blood in itself is not the issue. The issue is it's there because it's not going where it's supposed to go. Okay, I better end now. It's been, quite a long lecture today. I didn't intend it to be this long. It's almost 45 minutes. So see you next time. Bye, and happy Vegans Day on Friday.
Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to show your support.